Welcome to Homeschool Your Way. I'm your host, Janna Cook, and Bookshark's community manager. Today, I am joined by Laura from Monkey and Mom. She is a homeschool mom from Europe who is the creator of the blog, Monkey and Mom. Laura has been homeschooling her son, Marc, for 7 years, delving deep into the world of STEM for gifted learners. This episode is going to open your eyes to the idea of schooling outside of your comfort zone. Laura is going to tell us her story, and I'm so excited for her to share. Let's bring her in. Laura, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited for you to share your story. I know that Bookshark is used internationally. I would say my exposure to the families who use Bookshark are either in the US or US families who live overseas. You are neither of those things. You are a family that lives overseas, that was born and raised. And so you're choosing to use an American curriculum like Bookshark, and then creating this blog and these amazing videos on your YouTube channel, which we will make sure to link in the notes for those who are listening. But let's start from the beginning. Why don't you just introduce yourself, and then we'll get going into why you chose to homeschool in the country that you live.
Hi, I'm Laura, and I'm a blogger at Monkey and Mom. I homeschool an only child, currently 7th grade, and we are eclectic homeschoolers. So we choose and pick whatever works for us, but we like balancing academics and child-led learning. My son is gifted in STEM, and he's my opposite in every way. So that made for an adventure in homeschooling. Like, we never have a dull moment.
So why don't you tell us what country you have, your country of origin, maybe other countries that you've lived in, and then we'll kind of get into the history of homeschooling in the country that you're currently in.
Sure. We are homeschooling in Romania, and we've been living in Romania and India for several years. So homeschooling here doesn't really have any regulation. We don't have any rules to tell us what to do and how to do it. It's not legalized. I hate using that word, but that's the truth. So we homeschool under a law that says that parents here can choose their school. So parents can choose the school outside Romania also. That's why we had to choose an umbrella or distance school to homeschool, because in Romania, distance schools are illegal also. So we had two options when we chose. We could go the UK route or the US route. So we chose US because I feel that US provide us with more options. There are more options when it comes to curriculum. There are more publishers who cater to homeschoolers like Bookshark. And I also feel that the exams are easier because we will go the AP route and SAT route. And I feel that with the AP, you can choose whatever passions you have and just go to those exams. You aren't forced to go through standardized tests, like, if I can call it that. So homeschooling here isn't popular. And I think it's mainly because you have to do it in English. You have to do it in the language of the school that you chose. So lots of parents fear that, and it's a real fear. It's hard. And also there's no real community. Like, you can't really find a lot of information on how to do it correctly. The authorities and people in general have a lot of misconceptions around it. And you can really feel shunned, like you are going against the grain. You're doing something that hasn't been done, and everyone looks weird at you. Like, why did you choose that? And also, I feel people don't choose it because there's not smooth sailing between homeschooling and public school. Like, I know in US, you can easily go between them, switch and do whatever suits you. But for us, when we do it, it's like a long-term commitment. You cannot really go 1 year homeschooling, 1 year public school, and back again, because a lot of schools here, because of misconceptions and everything, they can make you sit through exams for every single subject, every single year you haven't been enrolled in a public school here. So that's a lot. And you really have to ponder and like take this decision. This decision is not taken lightly, here. So I feel we have a small community, but it's growing and becoming more confident, and I hope it will be fine in the years to come.
Your decision to choose a US based umbrella school, you said, was kind of based on the not only the academics, but also availability, but the language. So would you say there is a high percentage of Romanians that speak English, or is that a language that isn't necessarily spoken a lot in your country?
Well, we don't have English as an official language, so no, it's not that prevalent. It's one of the languages spoken here by some people, but not a large percentage of them. But if you want to homeschool, you don't really have a lot of options, because even if you look at other languages in Europe, homeschooling is pretty much illegal. Like in Germany, you can get into jail if you homeschool your kids. There are other countries who have strict regulations, like France, where you need to sit through their national exams like every 2 years, and they are becoming increasingly stricter. So even UK started changing and modifying their laws. So there's not many options you have when it comes to choosing an umbrella school. Most of them are English. So English is a must learn language. But I also feel like at the same time, it was something I wanted from the beginning, because I thought if my son will learn, like will finish all his school in English and will have this plus to his portfolio that he knows how to speak English and he's cursive in it, and he has diplomas in English, then he will have doors opening for him. Like he'll have access to all the international universities, and he won't have to go through the stress of learning English, as a second language, and getting ready for both the exams here in Romania and the SAT or whatever entrance exams he had to take if he wanted to go outside to a university. So there are more benefits to English, and I keep telling people here also that it's not only this. You also have a lot of resources in English that aren't there in other languages. So I keep encouraging people, even if you don't go the homeschooling route, you can opt to teach your kids English when they are little. So when they start school, you can just grab anything. Like they want to learn chemistry at 7, like mine did. There's a curriculum for that, but it's in English.
Yeah. So did you learn English as a child, or was that something that you made a decision as an adult to learn?
No, I actually learned English during high school. English is my third language. So during high school, we had like 2 hours of English per week. And that's when I started learning English. But most of it I learned when I had my son, I took the decision to read in English and teach him as much English as I knew, because I don't know if you're familiar with the one parent, one language and all those. Like if you know more languages in your family, one parent can speak one language, the other parent can speak the other language, and the kid will speak both. But I was like one parent, all the languages, because I did both Romanian and English with him, and now he is better than me, obviously. But while I was teaching him and he was little, I just looked to better myself. And I did through listening to audiobooks, through reading only in English. I just switched everything to English. And it was so difficult at first, but then you start seeing it pay off, And I'm telling the parents that come to me, also Romanian parents, that just try to create an environment where English is present everywhere, even for your kids. And that will really help them. You don't even realize when it's happening. Just start speaking with them, like when you play or when you prepare food, or like make them listen to it and use it in your family, and you will see it's not that difficult.
I think one of the major advantages for you as a parent who is choosing to homeschool is that you have a love of learning. And I know that as parents, when we model that for our children, it is the best type of learning, right? When we're demonstrating that it matters to us, we're passionate about it, it's contagious. And I think whether it's Romanian families learning English, or it's English speaking families learning Romanian. Like we have these amazing capabilities if we're willing to put aside our own fears and just kind of jump into the deep end, knowing that there's no way we can drown, like metaphorically, because we're not even in water. So sometimes we just have to try. Now, you weren't going to homeschool your son from the beginning. You decided to try your local school district. And I would love for you to share that story because I think it's really impactful to your journey.
Oh yeah. He actually just tried school for a few days, and I immediately knew it wasn't for us. Like the environment, and also I'm sorry to say this, but like the level, we live in a small area, so maybe that's why. But I felt like the overall level of his peers didn't match his, and here we don't have that differentiation you have in US. I think you have classes for gifted kids or accelerated learning. We don't have that here. Like everyone the same age is put together and they all have to kind of be at the same level. I even spoke with his teacher and she said, well, you taught him too much. And when I heard that, like that's not normal. How can you teach someone too much? You're always learning, and that you said that I was an example for him with learning also. And I think that's essential for all parents to show their kids that learning never stops. You always learn. You can learn as an adult, and maybe you don't know everything. They also have to see that adults aren't always right. They don't always know everything. I think those are the things I really wanted to instill in him, and also encourage that natural curiosity that kids have. I didn't feel that the schools here would help with that. In fact, I felt that that was the first thing they would crush. Because if you go to a child that's curious and asking a question and you tell him, oh, you're too little now, you can learn it in a few years, it's not the right moment. Or we don't do that today, we'll do it another time. That's like a sure way to just drown the curiosity and belittle their curiosity because you say it's not important enough for us to do it now. And that's what I felt this school did here. And I didn't realize it at the time. I just went home crying because I felt something wasn't right. And then I'm so glad I just went ahead and listened to my instincts because 8 years later, I can say it worked. But back then, it was so scary. Like I didn't know anything about homeschooling back then. It wasn't even in my mind. And then I discovered this homeschooler, one local homeschooler who was posting in English on her blog. It was called My English Homeschool. And I contacted her and I asked her, how do you do all this? And she started telling me about homeschooling and how to do it in Romania. And like that really opened my eyes and opened the gates, the floodgates. Because after that, I started researching a lot and I created my own communities on Facebook. And I just wanted to be an example for everyone that came behind. Like I wanted them to find the information I couldn't find when I was looking for it. So yeah, the reason we homeschooled basically was we wanted something better for our son.
I am really encouraged by your statement that you just felt like something wasn't right. Like it typically, as humans, we go with the flow. We don't like to go against the grain. It's uncomfortable and we're pioneers in something that we didn't necessarily want to be a pioneer in, but there's just that gut feeling that we can choose a different way. And I think that a lot of homeschool parents feel that way. Like, I may not know what I'm doing, but I know that I'm supposed to be doing something different than what's being offered to me. And I don't want to say the easy way because public school, private school, charter schooling, each has their own place and challenges, right? Parenting is a gigantic challenge in and of itself. But I think listening to that sixth sense that we have as parents, that we do know what's best for our kids. And when we go to what we think are the authorities on it and they're dismissive of us, that it's like we could go, okay, well, maybe it's just in my mind. Maybe I'm just overreacting. I should just, like, you could have just said, well, I'll just send them and see what happens. Um, it's like we have to be advocates for our children. And
Yeah.
I think that it's a lot easier said than done, because when you're challenging the establishment, it does feel like David and Goliath, right? Like, I can't do this.
Yeah. And it's not even that. Like, we also face challenges from our own families. Like, even my own mom said that I'm destroying his future. What am I doing? This is not what people usually do. Like, who are you to go against everything, you know? And that's something that parents here face. I think even in the US, there's this, like, even with a rich history of homeschooling, you still have this problem. So here it's even more, because even I had a lady write to me and saying that, oh, I'm so excited to start homeschooling with my 6-year-old. And then in a few days, she was like, my husband doesn't agree. So I was like, I know exactly what she's been through, because I had to fight my whole family to be able to do this. But I was so convinced in that instance that this is the way we should go, that I was willing to fight for it. And I am happy I did.
When you have such a strong conviction about something, I think that is like the first stepping stone to fight, because if you're unsure and you're wishy-washy, then the first sign of resistance, either a partner is very hard. When your partner is not aligned with your passion, it can be very difficult to persuade. But beyond that is if you two can get on the same page, which to me is the biggest thing. But then your surrounding family, it's like when people start to poke holes in your plan, it feels, you just start to feel like you're sinking. But when you have such a strong conviction that it's like, I don't have the answers to what you're saying. Yeah, maybe I am making the wrong decision, but the only way to know is to try. And in our experience, I didn't want to homeschool our kids. I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. And my husband, we always were like, first I was like, maybe we should homeschool. He's like, no, not a good idea. And then I was like, okay, we shouldn't homeschool. And then he was like, maybe we should homeschool. And then, so it's like we had these different phases. And then finally we were both like, okay, we're going to homeschool. And then that just like solidified the decision. So was your partner always on the same page when you presented this out of the box education?
Actually, he wasn't really convinced it would work, but I kind of told him that's what I'm doing, so you have to roll with it. And I think he was waiting, like, okay, she will quit next year, like this is becoming too difficult. And then if him and my family, they started seeing the results, like, oh, she managed to make him read, and now he can do math also, and oh, he even has a diploma from the umbrella school. So maybe it's not so bad. And then as the years progressed and they saw his growth, like my son's growth, they kind of like were okay with it. My mom still brings it up sometimes. She would say, like, are you sure, like, are you sure he can go to college after this? Will he have like paperwork that's accepted? Do you know what you're doing? And all those kinds of questions. Like, she sees that he's advanced in math and chemistry, and they were worried, like, what will you do? Because he's like ahead of you. So yeah, we found tutors online. We found online classes, self-paced, because he doesn't like ones, and he's doing great. He keeps growing. That's what's important to me, to see him happy both emotionally and otherwise, and to see him grow academically. Those were my goals, and I see I'm reaching them year by year.
And really, I mean, it's like the proof is in the growth, right? It's one of these things that
Yeah.
it's like, I can't prove to you that this is a good choice, but I can only demonstrate, and the only way I can do that is by trying it. So let's give it a go. And there are parents, especially during the pandemic, who started homeschooling, who saw the benefits, sometimes not immediately. And we all have our ups and downs, right? We have good days and bad days, and both us and our children. But then for whatever circumstances, they couldn't continue. Things opened back up and it just wasn't a possibility. And then there was other families who thought for sure they would go right back into the brick and mortar schools. But after they had been out and been doing homeschool, they were like, this is amazing. Why didn't we try this earlier? And so it's one of those things that like you just don't know what you don't know, and the only way to know is to do. And there's like, again, there's fear in that, right? Like, but there's also comfort in the fact that like I no amount of me talking is going to prove to you what I'm trying to prove. You just have to trust me. And that was the thing too. Like we tell a lot of people, just try, set aside a year and then see, and then reevaluate. And if it's not for you, it's not working, and in the US, because we can in most states seamlessly go from one to another with very little friction, it's like you could even do a semester. Just try for a semester and half the year and see how it goes. So, yeah, it really, but all the things that you're saying that you feel and have experienced, I think those are global. I don't think that is, isolated to homeschooling out of the United States. I think that is just homeschooling in general, because we're constantly
Yeah.
really crossing our fingers that we made the right decision for our children.
Yeah, it's true. Like even now, as he approaches the high school years, the fears are growing. Am I doing enough? Is he doing enough? Like, that the homeschool schedule is less than the hours they spend in public school. So should we do more hours? Should we do extra math? Should we do, those are doubts, and will always creep in. But I think they are a sign that you're doing the right thing. I think when you start questioning what you are doing, you're really thinking about it and assessing it. And I tell the parents who reach to me that, like, it's okay to doubt yourself. It's okay to keep asking yourself if this is okay, if it works fine, because you should constantly see if you need to change anything. And there's no way to do that if you don't care. If you say, nah, it's fine, it will turn out okay, no matter what I do. I think that's where the danger lies, when you stop thinking, or you never think from the beginning that you should really give your best. Homeschooling is not easy. And I tell that to everyone. It's not an easy decision, and it's not an easy thing to do, because you're sacrificing so much as a parent also. It's way easier to ship them to school, especially in some cases. And also it's not for everyone. I know that a lot of people say, oh, just homeschool because it's so easy. But the truth is, some kids do better in public school, and some parents cannot take the role of a teacher or a facilitator, I can say, because you don't always have to be the teacher. You can choose materials and people from outside, but you still need to be involved, invested in it. And some parents just cannot do it, and it's fine. Their kids will be happier in other settings. I think the main thing here is to just do what's best for your family, for your kid, and for yourself.
Now, talk about one of the biggest decision makers after you've decided to homeschool is finding a good fit of curriculum and where you're going to go. And so your story, you kind of reverse engineered the fact that you were looking at the end goal, that you knew you wanted some kind of college degree for your son. And you obviously saw right away that that was something he could accomplish, and he was gifted in that. So you had the end in mind, so you kind of worked backwards. And kind of tell us that process, like how you narrowed it down and came to your decision, and what you would choose to use.
So I wanted him to like be achieving academically, but I also wanted him to preserve that curiosity and love for learning. Like I wanted him to be a lifelong learner. My end goal is not really that diploma. My end goal is for him to always learn, always be curious. Like I think that's real happiness, when you can find happiness in what you do because you love it and you're curious about it. So because of that, I ended up being eclectic. I didn't start with the eclectic homeschooling because I thought it's so difficult to just go, and there are so many curricula, and how do I choose the perfect? I ended up doing it anyway, and it was great. And I think balancing that is the secret sauce here. For example, we do arts and math. Those are non-negotiables, and I think it's universally available, because no matter where you go and what you do, these are the two things you should know. But for the rest of them, I kind of let him lead. Uh, I saw he has a passion for sciences and STEM in general early on. So that was our third choice. So we have language arts, math, and then his passion, which is science. So it was pretty easy to go from there and choose curriculum. And we always prioritize them that way. So my resources and my efforts go more into choosing these three for him. And then the rest come at the back.
I think that is unique because I think most parents don't look at it that necessarily that way. I think we're so ingrained to think that it has to be, these core subjects and it has to be in this order. And but we really can. The point of a child-led learning is to focus on what your kids are really interested in. And there's, like you said, always non-negotiables, but really help that process and encourage them to help you make that decision once they become capable as they get older, because they're gonna be the ones doing it. They probably should enjoy it too, right? We shouldn't be.
Yeah.
It just helps.
And with
It helps the whole
child-led,
process.
yeah, sorry.
No,
And
go
with
ahead.
child-led, I feel that he will continuously discover things he's interested in. And sometimes he'll discover them because I am the one planning resources and exposing him to things. So as we go through a planned curriculum, we'll stop at, I don't know, we did from Bookshark this year about the Romans, and then we ended up with Roman numerals. But how do you say 1 million in Roman numerals and all those things? He likes going down these rabbit holes. And I think homeschooling, the way we do it, flexible and eclectic, just allows us, okay, we'll pause everything we were doing for today. Let's go and find out more about the Roman numerals. And he ended up printing pages from the internet with all the Roman numerals. And then he actually learned them so well that he started writing his own novel. And he hates writing, but he chose to put the pages in Roman numerals. So now he can read Roman numerals from monuments, everything. And it wasn't something I planned to do, but this is how child-led learning works, especially if you balance it, because many times parents think that if you choose one style or one way, you have to do it 100%. If I want to go child-led learning, I just have to do whatever the child wants every single day. And it's not that. I think eclectic homeschooling showed us that you can just blend and mix and do whatever percentage you want to just make it work and to see your child grow and love to learn.
So would you say that your passion behind homeschool, or the one of the reasons you love it, is because you do see your son just blossoming in all of these areas? The fact that you literally just said he doesn't like to write, but he's writing a novel, like that's a huge win.
Yeah, it is. And we had a lot of adventures, especially when I was like a new homeschooler. I had no idea what I was doing. We went with a boxed curriculum for the first 2 years, and I did everything to a T from it. And I realized it's so much like public school. And we kind of, both of us hated it. We went through it, but it wasn't great. And then I really sat down and I looked at it and I said, okay, what is it with this curriculum that doesn't work? Because I knew there were parts that worked. And I realized there were two main things. One was that some of the subjects were like busy work. They were repetitive and he didn't need that, because that's the way he learns. And some of them weren't sufficiently developed, for writing in particular. I felt that his STEM brain didn't work the way mine did. And even I wasn't capable to explain writing like composition writing, creative writing to him. So I sat down. I didn't even know what to look for. I didn't know what I needed, what he needed. So I sat down and I thought it through logically, like what kind of curriculum would fit a logical brain. And I said, he needs something step by step. He needs something broken down. He needs like a list of things that he has to do for every single composition so he knows what to do. And I found the curriculum finally, and it was so amazing. I didn't see immediate results, like we are in the second year using it, And I finally see him take initiative in writing, and that has been amazing. Like, I cannot believe it. That also helped me because being a writer, and I love writing, and I love it so much that I sometimes go overboard with my blog posts. I write too much. But I have this defect. Like, I feel like correcting his work from my point of view, and I go like, writing is super personal, and you cannot go there and say, oh, I don't agree with your idea. And I know that that's a very touchy subject with a lot of homeschool moms and maybe even teachers. I don't know. Even with all the rubrics, I just cannot correct it. So I decided to, okay, writing will be outsourced. I won't do it. He's doing it with videos, and I just have a checklist. And if he follows the form, I'm not looking at the ideas or the way he presented them. If he follows all the requirements, like a form of the essay or whatever he's writing, he gets full points. And that has been amazing for us. Like, it encouraged him, and now he's even writing his own novel. I don't know how many hundreds of pages it has. It's some sci-fi thing only he likes.
Well, that's really exciting. We do have
Yeah.
a podcast with a English tutoring company that has a publishing site. So I will definitely get you the link to that. So it might be something that he could actually publish and let other children his age read in the United States. It's
Yeah,
kind of an interesting concept. Um,
I will ask
I
him if he's interested.
yeah, I agree. I never graded my girls' writing. I just read through it because I'm the same way. I'm an English major. I have an editing brain. I want to fix what's not right. I want to change the word around so it's more clear. And it was hurtful to them. I found that very early on. It was like, why are you picking that apart? Why? Because it is so personal. And so I stopped grading it and I thought, well, when you go on to higher learning, you're going to have to accept criticism from somebody, but it's just not going to be me because I didn't want to break that part of our relationship. And both of my older two daughters, they were able to take college classes as freshman, sophomore in high school, and all they needed was some of that guidance in like the mechanics of it, but they had no problem with the writing and they loved to write. And I had a daughter who wrote a novel too, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just blown away. I could never imagine having a consistent storyline for that many pages. So yeah, it's beautiful when we see those things happening. And I love that you just trusted the process. It took 2 years, and part of that could have been the curriculum. Part of it could have been his brain development. Part of it could have just been he finally found something he wanted to write about. I mean, there's so many different factors that I think homeschool parents get caught up in the product when really we need to just trust the process. And that, again, is one of those hard asks because you're saying, well, keep going. It might take a couple years. You'll get there. And we're immediate results driven. So it's harder, I think, for us to be like, okay, it's going to be okay. It's going to work. And fingers crossed that it does. Laura, in closing, do you have a homeschool hack you can share with our listeners?
In fact, I have more, like more like three.
Go for it.
One of them, and the first one that helped us a lot since the beginning, and I'm so happy I discovered it, is the growth mindset. I don't think it's spoken of so much in the homeschooling community, but it's so important because you also mentioned that your daughters didn't like to be criticized and such. So I feel the growth mindset really helps with that, and it helped my son because he's accepting criticism in stride now. It helps you think differently about mistakes. It helps them see that through mistakes, you are actually learning and growing. And it's not something that, you have to read a lot about. There are a few links on the internet and a few YouTube videos you can watch, and you'll get an idea of what you need to do. And one of our favorite quotes, which is growth mindset, is all things are difficult before they are easy. And that's one we have on our desk. And it helped him when he started reading also, because we used a curriculum that was not a good fit, and I didn't know at the time. And he was actually crying through every lesson. And it took me a while to say, okay, like, yeah, you trust the process, but up to some point, like I saw that it wasn't working and I kept pushing through, and then he ended up crying. So I said, okay, this is not fine. We almost finished it. And then I just switched completely. But he remained with that reluctance in reading, and the growth mindset really helped him there. And I told him, okay, just take it step by step, let's look behind you. When you started speaking, because he was little, I didn't have any other example. It was very difficult for you, but now you do it, you don't even think about it. And this is what will happen with reading also. You keep at it, every day, a little by a little, and in a few years, you won't even think about it. And I was right, because now he's an avid reader. He just loves reading, and that's why Bookshark is so perfect for us. And the second hack is only compare yourself to yourself. I see this happen a lot all over social media, in all the Facebook groups, and we all fall into it sometimes. But you should remember that you shouldn't compare your child to anyone else or your situation to anyone else. If you see growth, like 6 months ago or 1 year ago or 2 years ago, my kid is on an upslope, then what you're doing is perfect. Keep doing it. If you don't see that, then you should reassess and change things. And the third one is, we already discussed about it. I think balancing academics and child-led is like the perfect way to, grow curious individuals, and individuals want to learn for life. And this happens only because homeschooling is so flexible.
Well, thank you. Those three, and they blend beautifully together. So I think that's a full hack with a part A, B, and C. So thank
Yes.
you so much. Laura, I want to thank you for what you have contributed to the homeschool community, not only in your country and your passion to help others kind of explore this alternative education, but also what you're doing to encourage those of us on this side of the globe, because your blogs and your sharing your journey with you and your son has been an encouragement, I know, to our community as well. So thank you so much. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
Thank you guys. Until next time. Bye-bye.